What's up everyone and welcome to the next episode of the XL VoD review with Omen by HB, designed to help you dominate the game. For all those game dominating tips, tricks, tactics and terms, I turn to my prestigious partner, the Fernmeister General. I changed the adjective at the last second.
Better than pretentious.
Better than pretentious. Couldn't think of anything else that began with P when I was on the spot. So for anyone who's new to this show, what we do is we break down a recent game from, we've been sticking to the UK scene up until now. And the idea is that we break it down in detail so that if you're either a coach maybe or a player or you're just interested in the details of macro play and how to work as a team, we can hopefully give you some ideas about how that sort of thing works and how it's different from solo queue. Now, as I said, normally we've been doing the UK scene, but the UK scene is now finished. Yep. And we've got the European Masters, so we're breaking down a game from the play-in stage of that, which started yesterday, going on today as well. It's going to be going, don't know when this goes out, but it'll be going on. Massive tournament. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, this is the equivalent of the Challenger Series. So these are the best teams that aren't in the LCS from loads of different regions. XL are going to be playing there, I think, the day after this comes out.
Yeah, so we come into the group stages. Obviously, only the play-ins just started yesterday from when this was filmed. So we've only seen a kind of handful of games, but yeah, 4 UK teams are in the tournament as a whole. So
yeah. All right, cool. So, as you can tell, we've also got this shiny new overlay so we can actually watch draft properly, which is good. And just like always, we're going to be breaking down the draft as it happens. We're not going to go into huge detail about the draft because obviously it depends on the players and stuff like that as to what's the higher priority, but we will talk about anything we see. Last thing to note is this is on 8.6, so anyone who's playing live, everything's slightly different.
Yeah, the only thing I guess to note about the slightly unusual from 8.6 is that because of the Jhin interaction with Gwintsu's, which is actually technically a bug, the attack speed stacks, gives him a huge amount of AD. This being a Riot kind of backed tournament, don't let that kind of thing go through. So the combination of Jhin and Gwintsu's Rage Blade is not able to be played in this tournament, but both are available, but just not together.
So we see Rise, Vlad, Camille. Oh, I was explaining it because we normally are covering that up, but that's actually been already done. Rakan, we've talked about this a few times, slightly better now than it used to be. So although we do normally see the Xayah ban, I guess because they know they're leaving up Caitlyn, they wanna leave the Xayah as a possible answer maybe.
Yeah, I mean, especially seeing as we've seen some different kind of AD carry priority on this patch. We've seen some Varus over in Korea as well. Xayah traditionally a good answer, so if the first pick Varus did come out there, there's an immediate answer to that, and just leaving as much of the AD carry pool open as available, also quite nice.
Yeah, we do see the Kai'Sa come out. Now, this is something, I mean, we've seen this game before, so we do actually have something that we want to focus on in this game. We're probably not going to go too far into it, but the Kai'Sa being picked into Caitlyn is normally something that people who want to be looking at the Kai'Sa, they want to get rid of the Caitlyn because she's so short range, she has real trouble in the lane phase.
Yeah, she gets really punished in lane. Her ability to de-push waves is kind of very weak in comparison to the Caitlyn, so often shoved in. Exactly what Caitlyn does to most people in laning phase, but it's just accentuated by someone with such short range and such limited wave clear, really.
So there's two only mid lane bans. We've got the Rise and the Swain, which are both just super powerful picks.
Yep.
And they still go for the blind pick Ori. Do you know if there's much, like, what the theory behind that is, or is Magi Felix just like really comfortable on the Ori probably, or something like that?
I mean, Ori doesn't have many bad matchups. Spikes at mid game, whereas a lot of the other strong control mages right now spike later in the game, which is also where Kai'Sa wants to spike. So perhaps they want something to patch up the big game, give them some kind of tools to win out that. It equally is one of the mid lane mages that does a lot of damage while also actually kind of providing enough protection for something like a Kai'Sa. When you have a 500 range AD carry, there's a super late game scaling champion. Again, any kind of protection or peel for that champ that is the better, really.
And then we just see Trundle, super powerful pick, still technically the triple flex at this point. It can be put top, we've seen that a few times, can be put support, really strong in the jungle. Yeah,
with the addition of Conqueror, I think top lane Trundle is actually kind of quite a viable option now into lots of tanks. But traditionally it's been better in the jungle because it has very, very good matchups all round. its main weaknesses are those more squishy champions, especially AP. I think Nidalee is a really nice answer to Trundle in a lot of ways. Can cause him a lot of problems. A quicker clear, wins 1v1 trades, and actually punishes quite hard if it gets on top of him. Lee Sin's a similar principle, and also Kha'Zix is the other one, received a couple of nerfs on 8.6, but obviously Movistar Riders have opted for the Lee Sin here.
Okay, so is this something where, because they've now picked a good matchup into the Trundle, and there's 3 more support bans since we've seen that, is that something where you're thinking Team Forge could have the possibility to flex it into that support role, or is it still worth it in the jungle just because you can get to these items quicker, like we've traditionally seen the Zeeks and stuff like that? So
yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly fine here for the jungle to go support. Equally, some teams have practiced that and some teams haven't, so perhaps Team Forge may not have. Here they actually picked Braum, so looks like they're more comfortable putting it in the jungle, even if it's not in the greatest of matchups.
Yeah.
We'll still scale very well in the jungle. We'll still do a kind of, when Lee starts to fall off post level 11ish, Trundle will still go on and be able to shred any kind of tank threat that Movistar Riders get, and just be a real kind of nuisance to the backline, especially short range carry like Kai'Sa. But yeah, I mean it's completely flexible there in where they could have done that.
yeah, so we see the Alistar, Braum, very common, like basically the best supports, especially when you ban out all the other ones. And then the interesting thing is we see the Renekton come out. It's going to be Renekton with Conqueror, as I said. I mean, even though that is a strong thing, we have seen this, so we know that's definitely true. So this is why we wanted to look at this game, really. So we've got some very clear win conditions in terms of how each of these teams should play. Do you want to maybe go over that briefly?
Yeah, so Lee Sin, traditional very, very strong early game champion, especially once he has access to kind of ultimate, so level 6 to 11 is his real strength. And similar with Renekton. Renekton's powerful trades in the early game used to be very, very effective, but then once your opposing tank or opposing whatever you're against started to get a few resistances, yes, you out-sustained them over the course of the laning phase and you could slowly whittle them down, but now with the introduction of Conqueror, being the kind of nearest comparison to old Fervor that we've got, while also actually providing 20% of your trade damage into true damage, allows Renekton to just last much longer in the game and scale much better into still winning these matchups with his lead a little bit later in the game. You can,
sorry, I'm just messing around with things.
He always did have that ability to really snowball games, but fell out of favour because it just wasn't a consistent and reliable strategy. Whereas I think Conqueror definitely adds to a lot of that. Like, I mean, you immediately proc it early levels, you get about 10 AD. 10 AD's same as starting with your starting item and a longsword, so you instantly improves your strength, as well as
just going to be super
patching over some of your weaknesses as you come into the mid game when they get armor for sure.
So maybe it's worth just mentioning as well, I forgot to say at the beginning, like I said, it's a European tournament, so Team Forge are best team from Italy.
I think they finished number 1 in
Italy. Top place
Italy.
team from Italy. Very sorry if that's wrong.
Yeah,
pretty sure that's right. And Movistar Riders are...
They finished second this split in Spain, in the SLO.
Still probably the predicted favourites coming into this game. I mean, there are some of these European Masters games which are going to be quite one team favoured, but it's really interesting to see. So basically what we've got is, as you said, you've got this Renekton who's really strong in the top lane, especially with Lee Sin, and Movistar are going to be looking to play around that, but then you've got the Caitlyn on the other side.
It's kind of the same story, just on opposite sides of the maps for those teams. Forge want to play around this Caitlyn. This Caitlyn wants to pressure the tower, slowly whittle down the tower, and just be free from any external influences on her lane. Perhaps Lee Sin making an appearance there, perhaps Renekton TPing in behind, whatever. These tools are kind of what Caitlyn wants to avoid. She's very happy with this being a 2v2 lane and Braum denying any all-in engages from the Alistar. Whereas Movistar Riders are all about getting the Lee and the Renekton rolling on the top side of the map, putting Sion massively behind, controlling Trundle's topside jungle, not letting him come in there and actually get anything out of it, just with a constant out-trade potential and prior that this Renekton should have.
And this is one of those things that we want to... I'm going to be harping on about this over and over again, but this is probably what makes a big difference in this game, is just... Playing around your pressure lane doesn't necessarily mean like always ganking.
No.
But if you're in that area, and as you can see here, this move from Forge is something that we've seen a lot of Korean teams especially do when they have this Caitlyn, is look to steal the buff, late invade, and they've got the Braum, they're going to be stronger level 1 even if they do start here.
Absolutely.
And then it allows them to do this vertical jungling, which they actually in this case, don't do.
Yeah.
But
So the premise behind this is that Forge just want to allow Trundle to take all of the bot side jungle and trade that for his own top side jungle. It's not for Trundle to get an outright advantage necessarily, because Lee Sin actually knows about this and is just going to do the same thing on the top side. But what it does mean is there is no reason for Lee Sin to be in the bottom half of the map for at least the first 4 minutes of the game. And if he's not in the bottom side of the map for the first 4 minutes of the game, Caitlyn has a free 2v2 lane, and that completely plays into exactly what we were speaking about, what Caitlyn wants. And in some ways it also plays into what Movistar riders want as well, because they don't want Trundle to be able to impact the top side of the map. But if Lee Sin plays well, even if Trundle is there, they still lose the 2v2 anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's even a real common possibility from that side anyway, whereas if Lee and Trundle were both in the bot side, Caitlyn could very end up falling behind to the all-in potential from Lee and Alistair. So the very correct move there in that sense, initially in this game anyway.
So they go for the invade, but it seems to me like they're maybe going for the invade so that they can take a buff rather than so they can set up this vertical jungling, because as you can see, he leaves the wolves up and Lee Sin takes his entire top side, because Movistar riders see that this is happening and they want to do the opposite. They say, right, we're going to have no Trundle top and they'll have no Lee Sin bot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the big story about this is there was a good ward they got down in the pixel bush in bot lane river. Movistar did at level 1, and that allowed Movistar riders to actually see that this was coming, whereas Trundle didn't have certain information that Lee was taking all his camps topside and would be there that long. So there was a potential that Lee didn't know that the late invade was coming and they were going to do the swap until actually Caitlyn and Braum showed on lane, which could have been a bit late. And then as a result, Lee could have pathed into his bot side jungle and met the Trundle at the wolves. But so it's kind of a bit of lack of information, but then equally a lack of like trust in the pressure that you've got from your pushing lanes. And he could have just done the wolves there, cleared out Lee's full bot side jungle, and then not even had to enter back into his top side jungle.
And I mean, and this is the thing. This is where the first sort of mistakes come, at least from my point of view from the jungle. Like, there's no reason for Trundle to be up here.
I mean, he's just going to be walking around now with nothing to get. He can't contest Scuttle versus the Lee. Sion's already lost Flash and lost the big stacked wave that Renekton pushed in.
As you can see, there's pressure from the Caitlyn Braum lane. I mean, this is in the way, but they're under their tower. If he takes like one more camp from bot side and maybe the Scuttle, he gets level 4. Yeah. And we've seen these level 4 Trundles get dragons all the time. Yeah, it's an infernal. Use that pressure. Like, this is the thing. This is Movistar riders are playing this correctly by they just ignore bot side. Like, they've late invaded. We're doing vertical jungling. We ignore bot side. We play around top side because that's where our win condition is, and 2v2 we're stronger than them anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Wolves could have gone there, he could have done his own golems, then aided the pressure of his 2 pushing lanes, and even soloed out the Drake after the Scuttle, and just traded for Sion's Flash. I mean, Sion falling massively behind is not going to be a huge issue. It's how he's just trying to limit the amount of behind he gets without actually worrying about ever winning that side of the map, because there's very little that Forge can do to win that side of the map at all.
And this, I mean...
again, this is a byproduct of them seeing the Trundle top, right? Trundle walks over the ward, they know that they can immediately make this all-in committed play. Whereas if they don't know where Trundle is, if Trundle's doing Scuttle now or the Drake or whatever, they cannot make that play because Trundle could be sat in the bush in the river and they've got no control over the river, no control over anything. But because Trundle tried to contest the topside control, he actually ends up just giving a free loss to his pressure lane.
And this is the same, I mean, we've talked about this on previous episodes of the VoD review. Showing on the map is already losing something just to show. So if they know that he's around bot side, yes, the Alistar Kai'Sa is like weaker normally, but they've got a really strong all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second they see Trundle,
a lot of bursts, if she has passive procs.
Caitlyn does step up too much as well, but still it's that same idea of like, I mean, you should never put yourself in a situation where you have to, where you're allowing them to all in this combo. Let me just jump
to and I mean, not without a massive risk. I mean, they could take that risk and hope that Trundle's not there, but actually giving them that information for free for nothing. It's not like Trundle's even got anything out of being on the top side.
He's in fact lost time. He's just lost time.
He's literally got nothing since he's been there. Whereas Lee's still got this. He's now got his walls to clear. His bot side's going to be back up. Then he can even impact that Kai'Sa lane further or start to control around the Infernal Drake that should already technically be gone, because Cassio's having the better of this mid lane matchup where realistically levels 1 to 3 Cassio probably can have the better of this matchup, and they should have complete control of bot side river right now, even be taking Lee's second Gromp if he's that slow. And if you see how the ward coverage from Forge at all, I mean, there's literally nothing. There's the single scuttle on the top side and no control anywhere.
I mean, this is actually something on one of the old series of VoD reviews, not the Dominate the Game ones that we've seen KT, I think it was, do really well. They had Caitlyn Karma, which is obviously more extreme than Caitlyn Braum, but they basically just forced vertical jungling, and eventually the tower against Caitlyn is just going to go down because she's so good at pushing you and she's so good at pressuring under tower, especially as you can see the Kaiser's got press the attack, going for that better all in, going for that better late game. But it means if you're just taking an auto every time you walk forward under tower, like, you're eventually just going to succumb to that pressure unless Lee Sin can get there. And if you've got no jungle to get, Lee Sin basically just can't go bot side.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that Caitlyn's even better now at than when we first did those reviews back along, because headshots now proc on tower. So she does get these every fourth shot where she crits the tower and gets that headshot. And just her control of these areas where you're contesting waves versus Caitlyn is so hard in the early game. She pretty much always wins out in the poke war.
It's a very strange buy from Caitlyn as well, right? Must have had 900 gold, didn't want to get a pickaxe.
Yeah, that's very strange. I mean, I guess because she's got no flash, she values his safety more so than the actual laning power. But that to me tells you everything you need to know about this game already, in as much as Caitlyn has now given up a significant amount of the lane pressure that she is in favour of safety, when her lane should be being kept safe by the way the rest of the team is playing.
Yeah. And this is the massive difference between jungling in solo queue and jungling in team. Like, it's such a meme now that, like, just because you're a high solo queue jungler doesn't mean you're going to be good in team. And this is why, because like, this is how you play as a whole team. Basically revolves around where your jungler is putting the pressure. Whereas in solo queue, it's like, I'm going to head top side because they might overdive. And so on.
Reluctance overextending, can we kill him? Rather than actually, I need to facilitate Caitlyn pressure so that we can achieve our win conditions. In the long run, what should happen here is that Caitlyn should be able to slowly chip away at that tower. 7-8 minutes into the game, that tower should probably fall. Then you're immediately relieving pressure from Sion because you're rotating your bot lane into the Renekton lane and taking that tower, freeing up Sion a little bit to move around the map. And I mean, he's not very tanky right now, and he's not going to get any stronger against this Renekton in terms of a 1v1. Yeah. But if he does have a bit of free time, where he's in a long lane and the lane's been pushed into Renekton, he can use ultimate mid lane. He can actually impact skirmishes. Whereas in these short lanes where Renekton and Lee can just keep looking to dive the Sion, especially once they hit 6 and they've got all those tools available, like they just have, the Renekton ult and the Lee kick, all the tools are going to be there for this Sion's life to be made a living hell, really.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, especially as the Sion player, you're probably thinking, like, can I get some ganks here? Like, I'm in such a losing matchup. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. But really, the best thing to do to help him is to pressure bot side, get the tower, and then rotate the Caitlyn. And so you can either, like, you just trade farm between Renekton and Sion, and Sion's just better with farm.
Yeah, I mean, Sion's just got to try and limit the amount of damage caused on the game while trusting in his team to win the bottom side of the map, because Lee's investing all his resources.
And he's been doing it really well. He's only like 1 CS down, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sion's doing a perfectly good job, but equally the Caitlyn's behind the Kaiser as well. So Sion's done a good job with what's been existing, but he's still behind, and the other side of his map isn't winning where they should be winning. So early game definitely in favour of Movistar Riders with regards to playing around their win conditions.
And it's not like a huge gold lead, but it's one of those things that we don't see particularly show up until a bit later in the gold lead. So Renekton's getting to the point where he's chipping down that tower, but he's also getting to the point where he's going to be able to start diving the Sion, especially with Lee coming up. And they've managed to pick up the Infernal Drake despite the fact that they've got a much weaker bot side.
It's not a visual gold lead, but it's a kind of stats-based gold lead. Renekton Lee Sin for the next 5-6 levels, even with 500 gold less than their opponents, would be significantly stronger. Just because of the types of champions they are and the way their champions work. So being level, while Kaiser, their late game scaling kind of counterpart of this composition, is ahead, or kind of slightly ahead, it is exactly what they want out of this game. They just need to ensure that Renekton is able to get into these skirmishes. I mean, you can see exactly what the trade is. Procs Conqueror gets 20% true damage on his slice and dice, heals up with the Fury, and just it will go increasingly like this. I mean, there's nothing that Sion can build that will nullify this very much now, and that's again part down to the Conqueror.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's looking for a
just gonna
solo
throw in
dive
the
with ult.
dive.
Yeah. I mean, he was waiting for
Sion does
Conqueror. Sion did the right thing there, cleared the wave immediately, and yeah, it's not very easy to dive without the wave, but again, it's like just endless pressure.
And just another sort of just trade in mid lane. This is another thing we noticed yesterday. So we were catching up on some of the LCK that we missed as well.
Yep.
In the LCK semi-final. So these are like Mowgli and Spirit versus Rush and Score. Like these are, I mean, they're probably all they're definitely top 10, maybe
junglers
3 at least of them are
yeah.
top 5 junglers in the world. And yet when it gets to about 20 minutes, BoTV love to bring up all these stats and stuff, and it's like 2 ganks versus 1 gank or something like that. Like they don't run into lanes and try and get kills. Like they just play pressure around the map. So
yeah, they're just
less about
facilitating their
kill,
winning lanes. Like,
and it's trusting in your team, isn't it? Like you said,
they're just ensuring the matchups are going how the matchups should go, and not being swayed by external factors. The Caitlyn pressure isn't being swayed by Renekton TP or an Orianna roam or anything like playing for those kind of win conditions and allowing Caitlyn to do what she wants to, while also controlling the bottom side of the map, which is what they should have been doing in this comp. Would create a situation where you're playing well, but right now they've kind of forfeited all of their pressure in their winning side, while their losing side is still going to be losing. And then the league can, now that this has happened,
let's have a look at that.
they're in a real tough situation.
We do know that this game gets very out of control, so we're going to go back and look at more detail.
It's a really important early game, but then it devolved. It kind of just shows you what happens if you don't play for that in the later
So
stages.
they get pressure bot lane when they push in. They use that prior to make sure they've got bot lane vision, and then he uses that to go into mid from there. So again, it's like this one step into next step into next step.
I mean, a lot of this is there's 4 pink wards in the bot side river. Renekton now wins really hard on his own, as we've seen, and doesn't need any resources anymore.
Just because the first 8 minutes of the game, Lee Sin was topside.
Yeah, and Sion could do nothing. And just because Lee was facilitating Trundle not being there without Lee being there. You know what I mean? Whereas if Lee showed bot side, the same could have happened as what happened on bot lane, and Trundle could have been there, and perhaps they do get a kill on Renekton. But then they've now controlled the area where their pressure is not so much, but because they're putting more resources there, they can get pressure while still maintaining the pressure on top side. There was just before Brawl Clear went out there was 4 pig wards in the bottom river and Tribush of Forge's side, so in a real good spot to actually just move on, and it shows exactly what happens when you play around your kind of strengths. They had the stronger bot side, Forge did, and Movistar Riders had the stronger top side. The Movistar Riders played around their area of control, moved that pressure into the bot side, and now they even took the first Infernal a couple minutes ago. So
so it's just about playing to what your win conditions are, and
absolutely.
Obviously it'd be nice to actually go over and look, but I'm pretty sure the top tower for Forge is way lower than the bottom tower is for Movistar.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's down to
despite the fact that
what
Caitlyn
happened
would be
earlier.
better than Renekton.
It doesn't feel like. See, if you're someone who's not so experienced or understands the game or looks at it in a kind of the same analytical way, you might not actually realise that that's Trundle's. Trundle being topside river, it kind of started all that off.
Yeah,
he's topside river. Alistair knows he can all in. They all in, they get the kill. Caitlyn is a bit worried about the all in again, so she goes back, buys double dagger and boots, and the game's so different to if she was just poking out for 3-4 minutes, gets a BF, comes back with BF, starts headshotting the tower, headshotting you under tower, and the tower gets whittled down. I mean, the tower would be down a long time ago if the pressure was facilitated.
And that helps the Sion because then you
can free Sion out. Exactly. So you're in turn helping the other side of the map. Absolutely.
And this is one of those reasons I think why. I'll just pause it so I can go back. This is one of those reasons I think why Caitlyn is so highly prioritised in pro leagues, LCK especially. Banned every single game. Not yesterday. We watched it yesterday on the weekend. Yeah. And so effective when it gets through, and sometimes we don't see quite why in these slightly lower standard games. And it's not even about the fact that she's going to kill you, it's the fact that she just out-pressures you unless you've got a very specific counter.
Yeah, she out-pressures pretty much everything. I mean, like we mentioned in the Champions League as well, Jhin was one of the real answers to her that could set up kind of kill pressure on her, could actually de-push just as well. But him being the Gwynsu's thing has kind of put a few people off, so Yeah, I think overall she'll be really high priority again this tournament. And now that it's the worst possible time, right?
Yeah.
There's a second Inferno up.
They got TP advantage top lane.
We said until about level 11, Lee and Renekton, relative to their opponents, are at their very kind of strongest points. I mean, Renekton will notoriously spike at 2 items overall, and then he'll just start opting into more tank stats most likely. But the Lee and Renekton, with regards to their kits, between 6 and 11 are just so powerful.
Yeah.
And there's a second Inferno up, which allows this early game scaling duo to even scale into the late game as well.
And I mean, there's just no reason to contest this from Forge's point of view, really, is there?
I mean, they can't.
They do, but they...
I think if they do, they die, and if they don't, they probably lose the game anyway, because the Renekton and Lee should... I mean, you've got a better chance if you don't contest this, in my personal opinion, unless you just trust Movistar to not be good. I think the only way that this goes poorly for Movistar is if Movistar misplay. I don't see a way where, in a real world, that this actually goes favourable for Forge contesting this Drake, unless it was some kind of miraculous steal, which Trundle not necessarily.
I mean, Forge do actually
that.
play that fight pretty well. Like Braum gets to save the Caitlyn really quickly, and they still lose Drake and almost get.
Kai'Sa uses a poor ult really, where she jumps into 2 people and is almost a kind of rough situation, has to use flash, but. That wasn't played particularly well, and we still saw the outcome was quite an easy Infernal Drake.
I mean, that's the thing, really. It's like when in solo queue you get all these like highlight plays where it's like you do like some crazy outplay and stuff like that. But teams generally you win by just with this is the right time for us to be fighting.
Yeah, understanding your conditions, understanding the situation you're in comparison to your opposing team, what your strengths are, what their strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what their weaknesses, and summing it up and trying to kind of make a calculation on what the correct play is in the situation. Especially when you're winning, the kind of lower the percentage of things going wrong are the types of plays that you go for. You go for those low percentage, kind of sometimes minimal reward, but a guaranteed reward nonetheless, as opposed to we're taking a straight out 50-50 and hoping it goes in our favour.
Yeah. And again, we still don't really see a massive advantage in the gold lead, but they've got 2 Infernal Drakes, and like Caitlyn needs to basically be ahead and in control of the game to get herself through a really rough mid-game patch that Caitlyn has.
Yeah.
And she's not. So when these towers are starting to go down, and also it's going to most likely be Movistar getting the first tower, because this top lane is much lower than bot lane, it's going to start getting really rough, and it can spiral out of control really quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, unless Caitlyn is really strong relative to the Kai'Sa, there's not going to be a huge amount of threat on this Kai'Sa. And Kai'Sa, without a threat on her in mid to 3-item team fights, is super scary. They do actually get the first break after I just said they're probably not going to. Yeah, and I mean, that's the power of Caitlyn. Even when this is played so poorly, this still does happen. I mean, it's just whatever. This tower should go down shortly as well, but.
Trade it for Rito, really.
The threat on the Caitlyn with the Lee Sin, Orianna, Renekton, and even Kai'Sa, who becomes a bit of an assassin really in some of these team fights, it is going to be really high, as opposed to the threat on the Kai'Sa from Forge's comp. Unless Sion can get some kind of really good flank, or Kai'Sa really gets caught up in a bad pillar, there's not going to be too much threat on her really. Which is exactly what you want when you're drafting Kai'Sa comps, of course.
Yeah, basically. I mean, and Kai'Sa late game, there's just no one who does as much damage.
Yeah,
I
she
think.
does
If she's
so
hitting
much
people,
DPS,
she just does more
for sure.
DPS.
And that's why she has been so highly prioritised. She's like a very strong late game scaling champion that, outside of Caitlyn, doesn't get punished hugely heavily in lane to an extent. I mean, it's still punishable, but it's like this champion doesn't need 6 items to kill your whole team.
Yeah.
Whereas some late game scaling champions are nearer to that.
So they do get the tower, and then they do swap, and it's still not over, right, for Forge. They've still got the Cassiopeia Caitlyn. If they get to late game, I mean, against Kai'Sa is quite rough, but they still get outscale on top side of the map. Yeah. So what is it that they want to do now? It's like, so we should have used our Caitlyn priority much better. That's definitely something that they should take away from this game. But what do they do at this point? They've gone top, so hopefully they can save that tower.
Well,
both bots down anyway.
Forge need to look for moments of Sion prio, so he's about to get it right now. He should be leaving this lane, pushing away from Renekton, push away from himself into Renekton, then Renekton will show on the wave and Sion has free time. What I don't want to see is Sion moving up to this wave and contesting the wave versus Renekton. I think he needs to be using the time to find out number situations. So like, as you can see, Orianna's way overextended, but Sion's contesting this wave.
Yeah.
Why not actually just use your next ultimate mid and put a bit of pressure on the Orianna? Even if you get nothing apart from like actually Cassio's then able to push out that lane, that means you and Cassio and Trundle can move into the river, and even if it's Lee Sin on his own in the river, because Aurier's under tower, because you just use your silent ult mid, or even if you just disappeared and she had to respect you, it gave Cassiopeia a lane priority, which you can use to control the river on top side, which is exactly what Caitlyn needs to get this top tower. So
And
just transition that
Movistar
pressure
is sort
across.
of doing the same thing. They get Prio in top lane with their bot lane, and they just instantly rotate towards mid.
And if you look what Renekton's doing right now, he doesn't care about contesting this or putting this silent further behind. He's just using while he's strong to threaten control of the map.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll keep harping back on, but like using Prio properly and playing around pressure, those are the two key differences between solo queue and competitive play, and that's the teams that have really mastered that. They're going to do really well in these sort of European
and the
tournaments.
teams that are going to get through play-ins into the group stages, and the teams that might not. These are like the key fundamentals of really, really important early game in any competitive game, and you can see how easy it is for them to just get onto this Caitlyn. Anybody who doesn't know much about Kai'Sa just needs hard CC to apply from anyone on her team to apply her passive, and she can use ult with anyone who's got a passive stack on it. So Alistair jumps in there,
Might as well go back and watch.
Alistair uses combo on the Caitlyn, and immediately Kai'Sa can literally just press R, get a big shield, and be within kill threat range.
Renekton pushes in and goes out of vision again, so he gets a free teleport, and Sion can't interrupt him. And they just push in and rotate onto this wave with the big tower. With the big minion wave, and there's just no reason. There's no reason to defend this. You've got no chance.
They can't defend it,
especially at this point, like you said, level 11, level 12. This is
the perfect
Lee Sin, Renekton exactly they want to fight.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not. See again, like it's not great play or anything like that. They didn't outplay. They just fought at the correct time. They probably should kill the tower here because it gets like way more shots off than it needed to, and it's still not even a close fight at all.
No, I don't think there's any way that Forge win a fight at this point in the game. And the issue with that we always talk about with contesting an objective that you're not in a position to contest is you lose the next one as well. And that's exactly what happens here. And realistically, versus a really good team, if this was LCK or anything right now, because this tier 2's gone down now, your control of your other tier 2s is very, very limited, because there's a massive long lane which waves get shoved very deep into. When someone's clearing that wave, whether it's Sion or they send Cassio or whoever it is to deal with the wave, at the moment it's Caitlyn, under that inhib tower, you're now in a 4v5 situation around your next two, and again, in a situation where you can get dived from mid lane or even on the bot side. So it's really, really rough when you don't quite understand whether you should contest. You always want to try and stop you always feel like you want to try and stop everything going down, but in doing so, you actually lose more than you're even trying to save. So you have to be really careful with understanding lane priority in a lot of senses.
So, is there really much that Forge can do at this point? Is this already because that one play just loses them so much in terms of pressure as well as just in terms of massive gold spike. They've now, like we said, they're in this Caitlyn trough point where she's not going to be doing more than Kai'Sa at any point in the game really until 6 items. She's going to be more useful. And so is there really much that you can do at this stage?
I think it's really, really hard. If Movistar play this out correctly, then the situation is going to be where you're going to lose this Drake, and then you should lose your tier 2 bot and your tier 2 mid, and then Baron control, and you've got to try and fight over the Baron is the next real objective that they can fight over. I think they can try and just funnel farm onto the Caitlyn Cassio, and then look for a fight at Nash is their next real opportunity when Lee and Renekton are struggling to maintain their kind of scaling grip on the game, when they're starting to fall off a little bit. It's probably not a lot with Double Infernal and the lead that they've got, but there is if you've got any possibility, it's around this Nash when they don't particularly have a tanky front line to be able to do the Nash. There's no Warmogs jungler that can keep peeling off it and just heal up. So contesting those kind of areas, not contesting these areas, is the way to go. I mean, I'm not sure what Trundle is thinking that's going to happen here. But again, it's a similar situation. They're contesting stuff that they can't contest, and you'll lose that, and then the next objective off it. And now they're going to just go straight to the Nash, and then the Forge's win condition is completely gone, because that's the only real window they have to fight anywhere is at this Nash, and they've already lost their jungler and their AD carry. So realistically, at this point, the game should be as good as done.
And now they're going to be strong enough to dive.
I mean, they do whatever they want.
Especially after this, like it just falls apart so quickly. I mean, to be honest, I think we just stop it there.
Yeah.
And we don't want to go on and on about looking at this kind of stuff, and it's slightly less useful. So I mean, basically, the main things are, I mean, it's just playing around the pressure in your lane, right? Playing around the matchups, trusting that your Caitlyn is going to win if you just let her have the pressure that she needs.
The reasons I used to be like this, and I see a lot of people that when they watch things like LCS and LCK and things like that, they say, why are they not fighting over this tower, or why are they not whatever, they're giving up objectives what seems like just for free, and they don't even contest them at all. It's because their understanding of when they can and when they can't, and if they do, what the actual consequences are. And Forge in this game clearly don't understand the consequences of contesting stuff without the pressure in the other lanes, and dive for a top tower there, then lose a second tower, then they go to contest the wave really far up mid, and they don't only just lose the wave that they're contesting, they lose the next objective. And that's where these games snowball really far out of control, is when you're and this is Forge that's snowballing the game for Movistar, rather than Movistar snowballing the game really well. Movistar played their early game significantly better than Forge, and were able to set up to control the game, but it was actually Forge who handed more than the objectives that Movistar had earned a certain amount of objectives off the control that they set up in the early game, but then actually Forge offered them more than that by trying to contest way too much in the early game as well.
And the early game in terms of jungle pathing, it's just make sure you're not just stealing this blue because we want to steal blue and we want to go for free buffs.
The blue is the very smallest kind of gain.
That vertical jungling choice, when I think we even said this when we first saw it live, that's what you want. If you've got the Caitlyn in the bot lane, Caitlyn especially against Kai'Sa, you want to just get her the pressure to let her do what the champion can do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's not about ganking for the Caitlyn and giving it kills. It's just allow Caitlyn to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And then if Lee Sin wants to come and help, he has to walk through, not get any camps, and waste at least a minute to even try and get a kill. And then assuming you play it correctly, maybe get summoners and it just falls really far behind.
You're trading off your sides of the jungle, and you're trying to work with your pressure lane, they're trying to work with their pressure lane. You're just trading off which one is getting the biggest advantage. And in this instance, it was a significant big advantage for Renekton and Kai'Sa over the Caitlyn and the Sion. So ultimately that's kind of where it's set up for coming into the 15-20 minute mark.
Okay, cool, and that's going to be it for us for this episode of the VoD Review, brought to you by Omen by HP, with Omen by HP, sorry. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you want to do. Maybe we could next time have even more detailed in terms of we want to look at this time, then this time, and then this time. Maybe something like that. I think you do actually get onto some quite interesting topics when you go in this slightly more free format way, but either way, let us know in the comments down below. Thanks very much for watching.